Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, episode number 118 today for the Spanish Grand Prix in Season 7. If you guys did miss the previous one at the Dutch Grand Prix, then be sure to go check that one out. That was uploaded 2 days ago, and it was a really stellar comeback drive there after a bit of a disaster in qualifying. We came back through very strongly with a risky strategy, but in the end it paid out really quite well, but I was very shocked at that. But overall, I think that race showed our team is looking very strong, but at the same time, especially so, Lando, the other side of the garage, he is looking very strong. Our new teammate, 2 wins in a row now, and I asked you guys whether we should start worrying a little bit in the comments below, and I think a lot of you were saying that, yeah, maybe so, that he looks very, very good, and maybe I have my work cut out for me, but at the same time, it's a long season, and historically, the last 2 seasons at least, no driver has won more than 2 races, so maybe Lando's gone a bit too early and got his 2 wins already, but 2 in a row is a difference. No one's done that in a while in this career mode series, so we're going to have to see. Spain, it's a bit of a different circuit. It's kind of Noah's Ark circuit. We come here very often to pre-season, not technically this year in 2021 for the upcoming new season, but we do come here often for pre-season testing, and so it means that a lot of the time when we come to this circuit, it's the car that's the limiting factor, not the driver. So this will be the real bulletproof test, I think, third time lucky, to see if our car genuinely is looking that good compared to our competitors. I think there's still a lot of question marks of where really Mclaren and Racing Point are, because I bigged them up, at the start of the series, at the start of the season, and they've been there in flashes. We've seen flashes of quickness from McLaren and Racing Point, either one of them getting a podium here and there, but not yet the concrete speed I thought they may get, especially McLaren. They won the most races last season. Racing Point, it's their 3rd season kind of being in the mix in the top 10, top 5, positions in the race, so I thought this may be the time for them to shine, but it hasn't come through yet. Mercedes have been the most consistent team apart from us underneath them, and then Ferrari and Red Bull have been very yo-yoing up and down. It's been quite interesting to watch, but it's hard to call. So early doors, all I can really say is us as a team, we're looking great. We've got a nice lead in the constructors, but at the moment, it's a bit of a worrying lead that Lando has over us, so we need to try and do the business and try and somehow beat him today in today's race, but it's going to be a tough one. We start the race weekend with wet weather coming towards us, and not just any wet weather, not to sound like an M&S advert, but full wet tyres are going to be needed straight off the bat, which is so frustrating for me because it's a dry race, which means we have to set up the car with a dry setup, but we have to go out there and qualify, at least in Q1, and on full wets. Maybe the intermediates are going to be needed later on, but I'm not too sure about that. But the full wets are going to be very tricky, and I'm going to need a fair few laps to make sure we even get through into the second part of qualifying. That's why you're about to see we've gone straight on for another lap, so a consecutive lap, because we filled up enough fuel to do 3 in a row, and we're going to need all 3 in a row at the end of the session here, as we left it a little bit of time just to make sure maybe the other cars could clean up the circuit a little bit. I don't know, basically, because it's not raining as hard now in the latter stages of this session. But I don't know about you guys, but every time we drive on full wets in qualifying, I never find the speed until maybe the 3rd or 4th lap, because the first lap is a banker. I'm sussing out where the grip is, how early I can go on the throttle, how late I can brake, what the best kind of speed I can carry into certain corners is, and it takes me at least 3-4 laps to really get to grips with it. And even then, you can see we're drifting through, wrestling the car through the last sector here on the final run, and that's going to be P13 only. We've done 3 laps in a row. The fuel's on the lowest it's been the entire time, and it's only good enough for P13. And by the end of this session, we move down to P15, and we do make it through, but only just, because also it did actually get, technically, to intermediates at the very end, because some people went out on inters and actually went quicker than me. Hamilton there in the McLaren, Lance Stroll, so I actually count my lucky stars. I could have very easily been knocked out, because a lot of the bottom teams and bottom drivers there went on to inters, risked it right at the end as it was crossover period, and some of them actually went faster than me, but not enough, and so we just made it through into Q2. So counting my lucky stars there, it is looking like it's going to be intermediates then in this second part of qualifying, which I'm actually not going to say is any better, really. If anything, it's worse, because historically, the last 2-3 years of the F1 game, intermediates have just got harder and harder, because there's such a weird grey area between dry and wet that inters sometimes, they just feel so horrendous, and actually sometimes the full wets feel better than intermediates. So I'm not really sure if I'm happy about that, but the thing is, the pace was much better, or at least it seemed much better, I should say, because we set a lap time for P3, but by the time we came back to the garage and we got 3-4 minutes left, we're down to P7. Lando's only set a time for P8, so on intermediates, we've kind of been equalised his teammate, and he's looking just as, well, slow as me down in P7, and we go then for our second flyer. It's the end of the session. The checkered flag's going to fall, only 10 seconds left, so this is it, and we're on the cusp of being knocked out. We're P9 right now, Lando is in P10, and as we barrel down into turn 1 to begin our second fly, the checkered flag falls, and we're still dropping, and into turns 1 and 2, we lose time, the rear end steps, and we're down to P12, Lando P13, we're both going to be knocked out this way. Now we have a snap of oversteer, and the car is in the wall, at turn 3, the rear end steps, couldn't catch it, tried to catch it, and then try to brake, and the tyres all just went screeching towards the barrier in the gravel there. It's an airborne crash, actually, as we impact the wall with quite high speed. We'd already lost 2 tenths in the first 2 corners, so it was already going to be a calamity anyway. We weren't going to get out of Q2, but then that sealed it, and this is what happened there. You can see high speed. I mean, look how quickly I'm having to move my steering wheel, trying to counteract it. I'm feeling the force feedback in my steering wheel. I'm trying to counter steer, but it just didn't work, and then as soon as I slammed on the brakes, I was just a passenger. The car was steering straight towards the wall, and that is us out completely. The car wrecked out of Q2, but Lando is also out. So, you know, he didn't gain any time, or he didn't gain enough time. I lost 2 tenths already in the first 2 corners with that oversteer. So I honestly don't think I would have even finished the lap and gone any better. So both of us, wow, what a shot this makes. From a 1-2, our very first 1-2 for the team in a long while at Aarava Archer Racing. We go from that last episode to this. Both of us knocked out, and look at this. As it usually does in Formula 1, the wet equalises a lot of the teams, and both Ferraris are through after looking so slow in the race last time out. Sainz is through, 2 AlphaTauris also through, and then the McLarens and Mercedes, and only 1 racing point as per usual, as one of them usually loses out. Albon this time losing out, but we don't know how Q3 is going to shape up. Obviously, I don't get to watch it, so we'll have to see how it goes on the grid. So let's go to that grid so you can see how the top 10 shootout goes. And we have to, well, both of us, as a team, me and Lando, both have a lot of work to do now from outside the top 10.
The Spanish Grand Prix has been a permanent fixture on the Formula 1 calendar for over 30 years now, and for good reason. Do you remember Michael Schumacher's absolute dominance here in that rain-soaked Grand Prix in 1996? That day he took his first ever victory for Ferrari, and we've had many more iconic moments since. The Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya then, a high-speed 2.89-mile circuit which demands an efficient downforce package and bravery on the part of the driver, especially through the blind right of turn 9, which we might just see taken flat this weekend. Also here, of course, is Anthony Davidson. Let's talk briefly about Lando Norris. That was a great win in the last race. Can they keep that momentum going this weekend?
It's always nice to come into a Grand Prix weekend on a high, but your expectations are based much more on your practice and qualifying runs. So it's the momentum from those sessions that they'll be hoping to carry into the race today.
Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Gasly, Sainz, Lance Stroll, and Bottas, Hamilton, Ocon, De Vries, and Lando Norris, Matsushita, the owner-driver, Alexander Albon, and Ricciardo, Giovinazzi, Latifi, George Russell, and Daniel Kvyat. Aitken, Giotto, Schumacher, and Kevin Magnussen fills the last spot on the grid. Now, it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track.
I'm getting some massive Fernando Alonso at Ferrari vibes there from seeing Leclerc on pole position. Surprising. It was still a wet qualifying, I believe, in the top 10 shootout there. You know, Ferrari, they're down in, was it P6 or 7 in the championship right now? So they're not a quick car at the moment. Both their drivers, the AI, I think, have been very slow at the start of this season. Maybe this is the turning point. Is this where we see Leclerc finally get back to his old speed? Maybe. I don't know, but that's a very surprising pole position. He's got a Mercedes alongside him. We've got, well, myself myself and Lando outside the top 10. Everyone, though, will have the chance to use a free choice of tyre because it was wet in Q2. So all of us will be trying, I assume, this one stop because it's been, even with the tyre wear levels being quite high in recent seasons, the one stop's been the way to go here around Catalonia. It's so much quicker. And the added caveat is, though, it won't even matter really because we've got rain, more rain, on the way at the end of this race. So we're all probably going to be starting on mediums, I suspect, unless there's a few odd ones out. And then we'll be going, I guess, to a set of hards. But I honestly may try and go to a set of softs because if we're going earlier then, if we're making a second earlier pit stop onto Inters or something, you may as well go on a quicker compound. I guess we'll kind of see how quickly the rain comes in basically midway through this race. But both myself and Lando are down the order in traffic, but I've been here before. I was here last episode, so we're going to try and keep our wits about us. And if we can, ideally try and jump Lando if we can early doors before we both get stuck in traffic and use that as a way to maybe finally beat our teammate for once in a race fair and square. So here we go then. We are revving up to 5 little red lights for round number 4 of Season 7, the Spanish Grand Prix. A disaster yesterday. Can we make up for it today? Fire lights are out and we're underway, and it's a great start for us compared to the Alpine car. But then as we climb up the gears, getting bogged down a bit behind Norris as we go towards turn 1. There's really no room to work with. We have a little look to the inside. Doesn't quite work out. The Alpine car comes back around the outside of us. Matsushita, we're going to go down the inside of him. It's still 2x2 up the road with Norris and De Vries going side by side. De Vries squeezes Lando out, but we're unable to make a move on the outside there. We have to take avoiding action to not hit our teammate, of course, wanting to keep it very respectful early doors in this season for the gloves to come off, really. It's so early, but we send one out to the inside, catch him napping a little bit on the exit, but look at the acceleration he's got. Even though we deployed ERS, I don't know how on earth Lando is getting that much acceleration, but we keep it side by side through this entire section, down and up the hill, up the right-hander, usually flat in qualifying, letting off to give Norris the room there, and behind Albon getting his nose in, and ahead of us Ocon v Bottas with AlphaTauri's looking pretty punchy today, and look at Bottas trying to go round the outside of Esteban Ocon, and he might just make that. They're still going at it. Meanwhile, behind, we saw a glimpse there of Lando still side by side, and he looks like he's just about squeezed out Albon, so he's going to maintain that position, but we're already dropping him. We're on the back of that first AlphaTauri. De Vries, Bottas unable to overtake Ocon there. It is Leclerc still in the lead of this race then, so he's held on to that pole position, that first place, and he's ahead of both Mercedes cars, Verstappen and Gasly respectively, and then you've got a kind of gaggle and mixture of the Red Bull, Stroll in the other Aston Martin car, and onto Hamilton who's up the road, and at the moment, once again, Hamilton is ahead of Ocon in an F1 race, so we'll keep an eye on that, see how that progresses, but right now, I fancy trying to overtake De Vries. You can see how much quicker we are in terms of raw pace, mid-corner, our car just rotates so much quicker than the AlphaTauri, but De Vries is putting up such a mega defense. He's been driving so well ever since he moved to AlphaTauri, but this season especially, but we're going to try and go dance it around the outside, and we're going to do it, squeeze him out on the exit, and that was a really, really satisfying move there. The little rear end step out, and we just managed to hold it as we went through the left and then the right up the hill. Really satisfying. And now, my engineer actually just told me, you may have heard it as I was talking there, Bottas has an issue. That's why he's so slow now, and Ocon is now a good 3 seconds down the road, so we need to get past Bottas ASAP, trying to go to the inside of this right-hander. Bit of contact made the long way round now. We couldn't do it on De Vries earlier, but we are going to do it on Bottas because he definitely has issues in that car of his, as he's very slow. We're up into P8 now, but Bottas being that slow and us being held up a bit by him and De Vries respectively, we're now 3.3 behind Ocon, so we've got a lot of time to find. You know, that's a lot of time really when you think about how close these cars are. You know, we're all separated by a few tenths usually in a dry qualifying session, but at the moment, up at the sharp end, it's Charles Leclerc that leads the way for Ferrari. Like I said, channeling those Fernando Alonso Ferrari vibes, dragging that car up the road because it really has not been at the front of the grid this entire time so far this season, but he's doing a stellar job ahead of both Mercedes cars. Then you've got Stroll, the Red Bull of Carlos Sainz's home Grand Prix, and then Hamilton ahead of Ocon. And then, like I said, there's a bit of a gap that we're trying to bridge the gap to, but it's difficult when all these cars are just as quick as our car, really. But, you know, we're trying to dig deep and find the time. Meanwhile, Lando Norris, he's ahead of Bottas, that is, and Bottas in the background being overtaken by the Aston Martin and of Albon, who's still trying to recover. Both Albon and Lando are losing some time now in this traffic with the AlphaTauris. The Lando is gaining time on De Vries, but look at the skies around us, already overcast, but Lando goes for a late dive down the inside, bit of contact made even on the front end, and this is going to be wheel-to-wheel stuff. He keeps his foot in though on the outside to the inside of turn 3, and they're still going at it neck and neck. Bit of a wobble for the Brit, and can De Vries find a way around the outside? Yes, he can. The Dutchman dives it round, and we look around the corner. They're still side by side. This is a fantastic battle. Into sector 2, it still continues on. How is it still going? And Norris will just about get across on the racing line and finally bookend that overtake. But my word, De Vries, I mean, when the car's there with him, he really does give it a good old show. And AlphaTauri, let's not forget, as it stands, they're still ahead of Ferrari and Red Bull in the constructor standing. So very much a force to be reckoned with in terms of that midfield fight, which is odd to say about Ferrari and Red Bull, but that's where they are. But things might change because Leclerc at the moment is still in the lead of this race. But as we go through lap number 8 to lap number 9, try my best, but it's very hard to be consistent. We sort of fast up the Grand Prix now, though, but I'm just not doing that consistently enough to catch enough time, and the gap is, well, it's grown. It's 3.7. I've lost time to Ocon, and the rain is coming down. You can see it's so much more overcast, I was saying, as we watch that Lando v De Vries fight, but the rain's already coming down. It's very hard to see on this Quadrant livery, but when I look back behind me on the rear wing, on the black rear wing, I can see this droplets of rain falling. So the rain's come a lot earlier than I was expecting. I thought, you know, around lap 20, you know, making one dry pit stop and then going on to the wet tyres, but it's already getting very wet as the race leader makes a mistake there, a big AI mistake there for Leclerc as he goes off circuit and has to hold up Gasly. Yellow flags on the main straight, and oh no! Norris is in the wall. Lando's out the Grand Prix. He has spun it into the wall, the last corner, and he is out of this Spanish Grand Prix just like that. That's how treacherous the conditions are. You can now start to see some more droplets on the halo for sure, and the rear end is twitching around. But here's a replay, and he's drifting into the last corner, and he just then has to catch the car, can't catch it, and he just spins it violently into the wall. And it's almost like a copycat of what I did in qualifying. Like, his car was going too quick for him to catch, basically. And he span it straight into that wall at the last turn onto the main straight. And so he's out of the Spanish Grand Prix. The man who won 2 races in a row is out. That is big news, not only for me, but for the entire grid, maybe, as everyone now has a great chance to get some points on the championship leader. And this is a replay. This is actually straight after Lando crashed, and I was reacting to that. Whilst we were doing that, this was Gasly being overtaken by Verstappen, so it's Leclerc in the lead still, somehow held on to the lead even after that little off at turn 1. But now Verstappen has made a great move as those two Mercs were side by side in sector 1 for a lot of that, and Verstappen with an aggressive move. And look at Stroll having a little look on the outside of Gasly. So Gasly not looking too great right now in P3. Stroll still there. Then it's Sainz, Hamilton, and Ocon. So the order is very much still the same then, apart from the two Mercs swapping positions. But look at that camera shot. Now you can see the droplets of rain, and eventually the race leader will come in as well as Verstappen. Gasly stays out. We've also got a few other cars staying out, but Leclerc is in. They're going on to the intermediates. Is it time for the crossover? I mean, it is getting wet enough where our teammates span out and crashed into a wall. Leclerc went off at turn 1, so maybe it is wet enough. But we continue on because my engineer's not told me yet, and I don't feel like it's slow enough yet for intermediates. I mean, look at the speed we're going at in turn 1. We're still looking okay on the dries, and as we come out the pit lane there, we follow on. Verstappen has jumped Leclerc, and hang on, it's not only that, Verstappen is on hards, Leclerc is on hards. They've pit for a set of dry tyres, so they don't even think it's time for inters, but they've also done the regular pit stop they were always going to do if it remained dry, and so this has turned the entire race upside down. So Verstappen's jumped Leclerc in the pit lane, but Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz, I believe Hamilton, all came in for a set of hards on, that was like lap 13, lap 15 onto 16 here. Stroll's in, Ocon, Gasly, and look at the top left. They've all come in for the hard tyres. What are they all doing? We continue on because it's not wet enough yet. I don't think it's wet enough. We're still fine. And now we've jumped everyone. We're in P1 of this Grand Prix. And Verstappen continues on, I think that was. But Leclerc's in. Stroll's in. Ocon's in. I can't even call it. What are they coming in? They're surely now coming in for inters. So they now think it's time for intermediates. So this is now what? Lap 18. So in the span of 5 laps, we've had most of the top 8 pitting for hards, and now half of them are pitting back in for intermediates. If they just stayed out, they would have still been ahead of us. But right, as it stands right now, I'm in the lead of this Grand Prix. Verstappen's in P2 on hard tyres, and I think Hamilton has stayed out as well, but is getting very wet now. Now it is time for intermediates for sure, but I think we made a good decision not coming in for that extra pit stop on dries, but it's very wet now, because look at that rain bead go down the camera, as that's how wet it is. The camera's picking up how wet it is, as we're now trying to trundle through Sector 3, and we spun into the wall. The rear end stepped, the lightest of throttle, and we spun the car, and Verstappen's there. He was only 10 seconds back from us. That's how far behind we were from the race leaders, to be honest. That's how far we were, so even with them pitting, there were still 10 seconds down the road. But now, our hard work's been undone, because we're down to P2 now. Gasly's continued on for another lap, so he's going to be absolutely screwed, but I guess it was team orders from Verstappen wanting to come in first. So we're in now. We've got a broken front wing. We are still there or thereabouts with Verstappen though, but this front wing change is going to lose us a few seconds, so pretty much all our hard work has been undone. Unfortunately, that last bit, I was just trying to go as easy as I could at the throttle, but I think my rear left tyre hit the curb, the rumble strip curb on the left, and as soon as I applied just a little bit of half throttle, the car just went, and it was like a slow-mo spin into the wall. I'm lucky not to lose a wheel to us. That could have been an absolute calamity for both us cars. You know, Lando already out. That could have been both of us DNFing, but no, we're still in this race, lap 18, and after all that risk we took with not pitting for the hards, we're now back out in P8, so it's a little bit, basically, it just got erased. That kind of gamble we made basically got erased by the spin. But I guess that's, that's the gamble we took, was we may have, had a mistake like that and binned it, basically. So Gasly's finally pit, and he's come out just ahead of us. So Gasly's gone from P3 to P7 by staying out for one more lap on the hard tyres in those inters conditions. So now the pecking order is Verstappen is the one that leads the race. Leclerc is in P2, so those two are still swapped round the other way around, as we saw in the pit lane, but I am back down in P8, so basically the risk we took, yeah, it just got erased basically, so we're back to square one. We're basically where we were, we're 2.3 seconds behind P7. It's just not Ocon this time, it's Gasly now who made that mistake by staying out for one more lap. But lap 22 then, we're starting to close a bit, or quite a lot actually, I would say, on Gasly. We're not really gaining on Hamilton though. Me and him are not gaining on Hamilton. I'm closing up to Gasly, but the gap is still about 2.1 to Hamilton, so that's a little bit worrying. Once we're past Gasly, who clearly is struggling in these inters, do I have any chance of closing up to Hamilton and closing up to any more points in this race? I'm not too sure. This might be another low-scoring one as we battle for P7 this is, as apparently the pit stop window opens as my team wants to pit me again for another set of inters. Don't know why, as we go down the inside of Gasly, bit of rubbing on the front left tyre. We make some contact there. We try to be a bit too clever, to be honest, by braking early and trying to cut in for the tighter exit to turn 3. Didn't work out. Had my pants pulled down there, and Gasly's able to defend quite well. That was a bit of a lost chance there. I felt like if I was more committed into turn 1, I could have maybe got Gasly, but I was so scared about locking up into turn 1. I mean, you saw in qualifying how bad I can be in these conditions, but hang on. Verstappen's in, Leclerc's in, Stroll's in, Sainz is in, Ocon's in. Hamilton, I think, has continued with Gasly as well. We've continued on for sure, because as I said, I don't know why my pit crew was asking me to come in for another set of intermediates, but it looks like it looks like everyone's pit crew has asked them that, and about 5 of them have agreed to it. But Hamilton stayed out here, Gasly as well, myself. So as it stands right now, Lewis Hamilton has got the lead of the Grand Prix in his McLaren. Second place Gasly. We're up into third now. We're going to get held up by this Haas under blue flags, as I'm trying my hardest to still keep with Gasly, but you can see visually the gap is growing again. So after that initial attempt at overtaking the Frenchman, we're losing some time now, and Gasly's kind of finding some speed, as he has done a few times in this career mode. We've seen him, Gasly's AI. Sometimes he has this period of going slow, and then he finds his feet and then goes quick. But I feel like me, Hamilton, Gasly, I think we're all thinking the same thing. I think we're all going to the end. At least I am. I want to go to the end on this set of Inters because we're on lap 20, I think 8 or 7 already. We've only got like 7 laps left. What's the point of pitting in? And look at the gap there you saw between myself and Verstappen is about a sector. He was in sector 1 as we're entering sector 3. So with the best will in the world, we may as well just stay on these Inters. It is lap 27. We've only got 6 laps left and Verstappen is 12 seconds behind us. There is no point pitting. Even with the tyre wear being bad, you can see how much I'm struggling. I genuinely don't think Verstappen will close 12 seconds in intermediate conditions, even if he's on new Inters, in 6 laps. Like, he will have to gain 2 seconds a lap for that. And that's just not happening because our cars are so equalised. I'm keeping up with Gasly. So even with this tyre wear, here we are. Lap number 30 this is. 3 laps to go. My left front tyre, I can't lie, is looking very dangerous. It's on like 67%. And you can clearly see visually, I'm absolutely everywhere. The rear end's squirming. I'm having to go opposite lock pretty much every other corner to catch this car. But we're still surviving. That's all we need to do. Because remember, we are down in P8. At this point, I will happily take P3 here in this Grand Prix. Because I was in P8... not able to catch Ocon or Gasly early in the race. So I will happily just take trundling around and surviving this race to get P3. And so here we are. That is what we're doing. And we're here on the last lap of the Grand Prix. The left front tyre is on 74%, which is a big deal, by the way, because if you don't know on the F1 game, once you get over 70%, that's the window where there could be a random puncher, and literally a random one. You could get it at 71%, you could get it at 88%, it's completely randomized. So at any moment in time, Gasly or Hamilton could get a puncher. But here, all 3 of us are, and I've only just realized what's happening here in front of my eyes. I don't know about you guys, but we're here on the last lap. And here we are in P3, but forget about us, because Lewis bloody Hamilton in the McLaren is in P1. This man has not won a race since, I think, Season 2 of this career mode. You know how woeful he's been, but here he is. Hamilton in a McLaren crosses the line to win the Spanish Grand Prix. What a shot. Probably the most shocking win we've ever seen in this career mode series, because you guys know how bad this man has been ever since Season 2. And do you want to know your fun fact for the day of this series? Hamilton, the last win he got in Season 2, where was it? It was here, at the Spanish Grand Prix. I'm not even making that up. Go look back at Season 2. It was the Spanish Grand Prix. That was the last win he got, and he wins again here.
It was a tough race at times, but they've held on to take a great victory for McLaren today. So, Anthony, what made the difference out there today?
Well, they clearly have a car that comes alive in the kind of conditions we were dealing with today. It's a very balanced package in the wet, and what that means is that the drivers have confidence to attack. And having that confidence gets you on the power earlier, it lets you brake later, and can put you a long way up the road.
Our winning drivers are on their way to the podium right now. It's been a fantastic race for McLaren, that's for sure, and no doubt they'll be celebrating tonight.
Absolutely unreal. What a story we have here in this career mode series. I can't believe we're seeing this man on the top step of the podium, which is weird for any of you who are new around here, but if you've been following on for the entirety of this series, you'll just know how much bad luck and how just poor Hamilton's been in this career mode. He's just not driven well and has also just not had the luck ever since Season 3. But yeah, his last win in this series was Season 2, and it was actually, I'm not even kidding, was the Spanish Grand Prix. That is actually unbelievable. Unreal. So with Lando Norris out of this Grand Prix, we do close up in the standings. Hamilton is now up into P3, and he's leading McLaren right now. Is this it? I thought maybe McLaren would be here in the championship fight. Is this now it? Will we now be seeing Hamilton staying up here at the sharp end, carrying McLaren to fight us in the championship, maybe? Who knows? Racing Point move up the order as well, up into P4 in the standings, as they have a bit of a better race. Mercedes falter a bit with Verstappen down the order. Gasly does well to overturn Verstappen after that slow kind of middle part of the race. What a topsy-turvy race. I can't believe me and Gasly went from P7 and 8 to P2, 3, and Hamilton, I mean, that's the story of the race. the biggest shock winner this entire series has seen, I've got to be honest, because of how bad he's been, how much bad luck he's been. And I think that's going to be a big fan favourite for you guys at home, maybe in the comments below. Let me know what you thought. If you're new around here, then be sure to get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content and smash that like button for Hamilton in our career mode series, winning again after 5 whole seasons. And he does it at the same place he won. Unbelievable. Unreal. Till next time, guys. Goodbye.